Are you prepared for tough economic times ahead? The Governor of the Bank of England has warned of the economic squeeze as wages fall but inflation rises. The Governor, Mark Carney, predicting that Britain's economy will grow by less than 2% this year. So it means a tightening of the belt. But can you tighten it any further? Have you got as far as you can go? Jonathan Davis is a wealth manager from Hertfordshire. Jonathan, good afternoon to you.
Hello, Rob.
Jonathan, you've been warning about this for a while. Is this it?
No, not even close. And you said in your top of the story there, you said that wages are falling. No, they're just not rising as fast as inflation. And there is still some economic growth, under 2%, but it's extremely lackluster when you consider that we still have the lowest borrowing rates literally since ancient Greece, and we have full employment. So it shows that there are problems in the system, but it's not even close to what the problems are going to be like when we actually go into recession.
Okay, so just what could we accept? Because if you go shopping, if you keep an eye on the prices, you'll know that if you paid £3.50 for a jar of coffee a couple of weeks ago, it is now £4.39, for example. It's everything across the board. Everything is a bit more expensive.
We have had mild inflation in goods and services for the last couple of years, but that's primarily because of the price of oil. It was only just over a year ago that oil was $26 a barrel. It's now hovering around $50 a barrel. And of course, not only do we use oil to fuel our cars, but of course we use it in all forms of manufacture and of course distribution, importation, heating our homes, and etc. So the price of oil is extremely important and informs largely our inflation. So when we go into recession, which at this stage I'm putting it at a 2 in 3 probability, so it's above 50% now, that we will see the end of the economic upcycle that's been going since 2009, 8 years ago, probably by the end of this year. Now, that therefore means there's a 1 in 3 probability that it won't happen, but there's a more than 50% chance that it will. And when it does, this is when you'll be getting lots of phone calls wondering what on earth is going on. House prices over a year or two will fall 20 or 30%. They won't be able to slash interest rates because Mark Carney, or Carnage as I call him, the governor of our Bank of England.
You're not a fan?
I'm not a fan in the slightest. He's a crook as far as I'm concerned.
That's a bit harsh.
He cut the interest rate in the autumn of last year when there was zero reason to do so. And
Jonathan,
then he complained about the pound falling. And what does the pound do? Well, it goes back to exactly what he was talking about yesterday. If the pound falls, it means our import costs go up, which means that we get inflation. So the reason,
Jonathan,
or a large reason why we have inflation, is because of Mark Carney.
Okay. Now, listen, we don't know what's going to happen with Brexit. Politically, globally, I don't think it's ever been more unstable. The governor is warning people is warning people to tighten their belts. Most working families just haven't got that extra cash to tighten their belts with. Jonathan, what's going to happen to those poor souls?
Again, before I say that, I take issue with things have never been more unstable. I'm sorry, I disagree with that entirely. Things are very stable right now, but they will become unstable, but we're not seeing it. But in terms of tightening belts, well, people need to take action before they are forced to. And the most important thing that your listeners need to do is look at all of the high interest debt that they have, the credit cards, the overdrafts, the car loans, all that kind of things. They need to get rid of them as quickly as possible, because I'm telling you, the next time we go into recession, and as I say, it's been 8 or 9 years since we had one, so we're due one with whether or not, I'm worth listening to, we are due one historically. The next time we go into recession, they will not be able to slash interest rates, which means it will be a serious recession.
Can I ask you?
There will be job losses.
Okay. Jonathan Garrison, did you say we have full employment? Because Phil says, Rob, did that Scottish guy, I think he means you, not me, say we have full employment? Well, we do not. I'm 50, but unemployed for a few years. I see people my age at the job centre, the same age, and we can't get jobs, says Phil.
Well, I don't understand why that should be, because there are hundreds of thousands of minimum wage or living wage jobs available, relatively unskilled. So I don't understand why he would say that.
But I think people can't take some jobs, Jonathan, because there just isn't enough money for them to live on.
Well, that goes back to, and I've said it so often on your show, if they hadn't bailed out the banks 8 or 9 years ago, our costs of living and costs of doing business would be so much lower now, which means that we would be so much more prosperous. Instead, all we get is between 1% and 2% economic growth with all the vast stimulus, and it's practically a rounding error. Given what's happening in China and Japan and the EU and the US, it's entirely possible, as I say, 2 and 3 probability that we could go into recession in 2018, and it will be a doozy, I'm afraid to say.
Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan Davies, Wealth Manager from Hertfordshire. I know some of you questioned, why is Jonathan always so harsh? But he's got a particular view on economics, and that's it. Sometimes he's been born right. But he can have fun as well, Jonathan, don't you worry about it.